The collision of worlds was never meant to be. A half-demon warrior with silver hair and twin pistols, thrust into a galaxy ruled by the Force. Beneath Nar Shaddaa's neon glow, the Crimson Maw cult sensed his arrival, their blood rituals intensifying as they whispered ancient Sith incantations. They believed his demonic heritage could tear the veil between realms, unleashing power beyond the dark side itself. But they never asked the crucial question: when you summon a demon hunter to your galaxy, who becomes the prey? Twin suns cast long shadows across the metallic spires of Nar Shaddaa. The smuggler's moon hung in the void like a festering wound in the galaxy, its neon veins pulsing with the lifeblood of crime, desperation, and opportunity. It was here, in the shadowed recesses between cantinas and pleasure houses, that the air suddenly crackled with energy, splitting reality itself. The rift appeared without warning, a jagged tear in the fabric of existence. Patrons scattered, drinks abandoned as the anomaly expanded, casting an otherworldly glow across the filthy durasteel. From within this cosmic wound emerged a figure, his silver hair gleaming under the harsh artificial lights, a red leather coat billowing behind him as if caught in some phantom wind. As his boots touched the grimy floor, the rift sealed itself shut, leaving only whispers and the lingering scent of ozone. Dante stood motionless, crystal blue eyes scanning his surroundings with practiced nonchalance. His hands instinctively hovered near ebony and ivory, the twin pistols holstered at his sides. The cantina had fallen silent, 100 alien eyes fixed upon the stranger who had materialized from nowhere. The half-demon hunter rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck, a cocky smile spreading across his face. "Nice place," he drawled, casting his gaze around the filthy establishment. "Though I gotta say, the dimensional travel really does a number on the appetite. Anyone know where a guy can get a decent pizza around here?" The silence shattered. Blasters were drawn, chairs overturned as patrons scrambled for cover. A Trandoshan bounty hunter, scales gleaming under the flickering lights, stepped forward with a heavy repeater cannon aimed squarely at Dante's chest. "We don't know what kind of demon you are," the reptilian growled, "but whatever bounty you're worth, I'm claiming it." Dante sighed dramatically. "Funny you should mention the demon part." His hands moved in a blur, drawing his pistols before the Trandoshan could squeeze his trigger. "But I think there's been a misunderstanding about who's hunting whom." The first shots rang out, and chaos erupted. Blaster fire crisscrossed the cantina, leaving scorch marks on walls and turning tables to splinters. But where the bolts should have found flesh, they found only empty air. Dante moved with impossible speed, weaving between energy beams as if they traveled through molasses. He fired with precision that seemed almost casual, each shot finding its mark with devastating effect. The Trandoshan bounty hunter roared in frustration as his heavy repeater overheated, steam hissing from its vents. He tossed it aside and drew a vibroblade, the weapon humming with energy as he lunged forward. Dante holstered his pistols and met the charge head-on, the massive sword rebellion materializing in his hand as if conjured from the very air. Steel met vibroblade in a shower of sparks. The cantina patrons who hadn't fled pressed themselves against the walls, watching in stunned silence as the stranger in red matched the notorious bounty hunter blow for blow. The Trandoshan fought with the savage fury of his species, but Dante parried each strike with fluid grace, his smile never faltering. "Not bad," Dante admitted, deflecting another savage blow. "But you're a little out of your league, lizard man." With a twist of his wrist, Dante sent the vibroblade spinning from the Trandoshan's grip. Before the bounty hunter could recover, Rebellion's edge rested against his throat, drawing a thin line of blood that trickled down his scales. "Now, as fun as this has been," Dante continued, "I'd really appreciate some information, starting with where the hell I am, and ending with how I get back home." The exchange was interrupted by the sound of heavy boots on metal flooring. Imperial stormtroopers poured into the cantina, their white armor stark against the dingy surroundings. They moved with military precision, blaster rifles raised and trained on Dante. "Stand down and surrender your weapons," the commander ordered through his helmet's vocoder. "By order of the Galactic Empire." Dante lowered Rebellion slowly, his expression thoughtful as he took in the uniformed soldiers. "Galactic Empire, huh? That's definitely not on my usual route." He shouldered his massive sword, seemingly unconcerned by the dozen blaster rifles aimed at his vitals. "Look, fellas, I'm just passing through. Had a little interdimensional mishap. Point me toward Earth, and I'll be out of your hair. Or helmet, I guess." "You will come with us for questioning," the commander stated flatly. "Your arrival has triggered energy readings unlike anything in Imperial records. Lord Vader will be most interested." Dante raised an eyebrow. "Lord Vader? Sounds charming. But I'll have to take a rain check on that meeting." His eyes darted around the room, assessing exits, angles, possibilities. "I've got my own problems to sort out." The commander's finger tightened on his trigger. That was not a request. What followed was a blur of motion and carnage. Dante leapt into the air, his coat flaring out like crimson wings as he twisted above the first volley of blaster fire. Rebellion sang through the air, cleaving through Imperial armor with impossible ease. Stormtroopers fell in white heaps, their precision formations crumbling against an opponent who moved like water and struck like lightning. One trooper, more clever than his fallen comrades, flanked Dante and fired from behind. The bolt struck true, searing through the half-demon's shoulder in a flash of energy. Dante staggered, genuine surprise crossing his features as he felt the unfamiliar wound. These weapons were different from the firearms he knew, their energy-based projectiles interacting with his demonic physiology in unexpected ways. "That's new," he muttered, rolling his injured shoulder as it already began to heal. "Might actually have to take this somewhat seriously." With renewed focus, Dante drew ebony and ivory once more. The pistols roared, their reports thundering through the cantina as he fired with inhuman accuracy. Each shot found gaps in the stormtrooper's armor, joints and weak points exploited with surgical precision. Within moments, the Imperial squad lay defeated, moans of pain echoing from those still clinging to consciousness. The commander, his armor scorched and helmet cracked, reached for his comlink with a trembling hand. Dante's boot came down hard, crushing the device and pinning the officer to the floor. "Now then," Dante said, crouching to bring his face level with the commander's visor. "I think it's time we had a proper chat about this galaxy of yours." Hours later, as Nar Shaddaa's endless night continued its reign, Dante sat alone in an abandoned warehouse, processing everything he had learned. The Empire, the Force, a galaxy spanning countless star systems, home to species beyond imagination, and most importantly, no clear way home. He twirled one of his pistols absently, the familiar weight grounding him amid the alien surroundings. The Imperial commander had proven surprisingly forthcoming once properly motivated. This galaxy was in the grip of a tyrannical regime, built on the ashes of something called the Republic. There were rebels fighting back, and whispers of mystical warriors nearly extinct. And then there was the Force. The commander had described it with a mixture of awe and fear, this energy field binding all living things. To Dante, it sounded suspiciously like the demonic power he had encountered throughout his life, just with better publicity. His musings were interrupted by the warehouse door sliding open with a metallic groan. Dante was on his feet in an instant, weapons ready. But instead of stormtroopers or bounty hunters, a solitary figure stood in the doorway, shrouded in a tattered brown cloak. The figure stepped into the dim light, pushing back their hood to reveal the face of a Togruta woman, her orange skin marked with distinctive white patterns, blue and white headtails framing her determined expression. "You've caused quite a stir in just one day," she said, her voice measured but tinged with curiosity. "Half the bounty hunters on Nar Shaddaa are looking for the man in red who appeared from nowhere and took down an Imperial squad single-handed." Dante holstered his weapons with a theatrical flourish. "What can I say? I know how to make an entrance." He studied the newcomer with interest. Something about her bearing spoke of discipline and training beyond ordinary soldiers. And you are? My name is Ahsoka Tano. She remained by the door, her posture alert. And I'm very interested in how you tore a hole in the fabric of reality. That kind of power doesn't go unnoticed, especially by those sensitive to the Force. Force sensitive, huh? Dante leaned against a crate, affecting a casual pose while keeping his reflexes ready. You one of those Jedi I've been hearing about. A shadow passed over Ahsoka's features. I was trained as a Jedi, but I walk my own path now. Her eyes narrowed as she studied him more intently. You're not from this galaxy, are you? Give the lady a prize, Dante replied with a smirk. Dimensional rift dumped me here without so much as a guidebook. Still trying to figure out if this is Mundus's idea of a joke or just really bad luck. Mundus, Ahsoka asked. Ancient demon lord. Wants me. Dead. Typical Tuesday. Dante waved dismissively. The point is, I need to find a way home, preferably before whatever passes for hell in this galaxy realizes I'm here. Ahsoka's expression grew grave. You may be too late for that. Your arrival created ripples in the Force that many would have felt, including those who serve the dark side. Dark side, light side, Dante scoffed. I've been dealing with power-hungry demons my entire life. Different dimension, same old song and dance. You don't understand, Ahsoka insisted. The dark side corrupts everything it touches. And if what I sensed about your arrival is true, your very presence here could upset the balance of the Force. Dante straightened, his flippant demeanor fading slightly. Look, I didn't ask to be dropped into your galactic civil war. I just want to find a way back to my own universe, where the demons at least have the courtesy to be straightforward about their evil intentions. Ahsoka took a step closer, her movements careful and measured. The Empire has already taken notice of you. It won't be long before others do as well. There are factions that would seek to use power like yours for their own ends. Story of my life, Dante muttered. He ran a hand through his silver hair, considering his options. So what's your stake in this? Why come looking for me? Because whatever brought you here wasn't an accident, Ahsoka replied, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. There are whispers of a Sith cult operating in this sector, the Crimson Maw. They've been searching for ways to access other realms, other sources of power beyond the Force, if they had something to do with your arrival. Dante's eyes narrowed. Then they might know how to send me back. Ahsoka nodded slowly. It's possible. But their intentions won't be pure. The dark side always demands a price. Lady, I've been paying prices my whole life. Dante pushed himself off the crate, his decision made. If the Crimson Maw cultists know something about how I got here, then they're my best lead. So either point me in their direction or step aside. For a long moment, Ahsoka simply studied him, her eyes searching his face for something. Finally, she spoke. They're rumored to have a temple hidden beneath the lower levels of the Corellian sector, but you won't find it alone. The way is hidden, protected by more than just physical barriers. And let me guess, Dante said with a knowing smile, you're just the tour guide I need? I have my own reasons for tracking the Crimson Maw, Ahsoka admitted. They've been abducting Force-sensitive children. For what purpose, I don't know. But I intend to find out and stop them. Dante spun ivory once before sliding it into its holster. Well then, Ahsoka Tano, looks like we've got ourselves a team-up. You help me find a way home, I help you kick some cultist ass. Deal? Ahsoka's lips curved in a small, reluctant smile. You're either very brave or very foolish. Been called worse by better, Dante replied with a wink. So when do we start? The answer came in the form of a thunderous explosion that rocked the warehouse, sending dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Ahsoka's lightsabers were in her hands instantly, twin blades of pure white energy humming to life. Dante whistled appreciatively at the weapons. Now those I could get used to. The warehouse door blasted inward, revealing a squad of figures clad in crimson armor, their helmets styled to resemble ancient Sith masks. Each carried a weapon that hummed with dark energy, vibro swords edged with a sickly red glow. "The Crimson Maw," Ahsoka confirmed, settling into a defensive stance. At their center stood a tall figure in elaborate robes, face concealed behind a mask of polished obsidian. When he spoke, his voice resonated with unnatural depth. "The anomaly and the apostate, together as foreseen, how convenient." Dante drew rebellion, the massive sword gleaming in, the emergency lights that had activated after the explosion. "I'm guessing you're the welcoming committee. Gotta say, the red is a bit on the nose. I was working that look way before you guys." The masked figure extended a hand, and Dante felt an invisible force wrap around his throat, lifting him off the ground. "Your flippancy masks power, outsider. Power that resonates with the dark side in ways you cannot comprehend." Ahsoka moved in a blur, her lightsabers cutting through the air toward the cult leader. He was forced to release Dante to defend himself, drawing a lightsaber of his own that blazed a malevolent red. The weapons clashed in a storm of energy, sparks flying as light and dark contested for dominance. Dante recovered quickly, turning his attention to the crimson-armored cultists now swarming into the warehouse. They moved with eerie synchronicity, their weapons pulsing with dark side energy. The half-demon rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck. "All right, boys, let's see if you can keep up." He charged forward, rebellion cleaving through the air. The battle erupted in earnest. Dante found himself confronted by opponents unlike any he had faced before. These cultists fought with a strange mixture of technological precision and mystical ability. Some hurled objects with their minds, others moved with preternatural speed. Their vibro swords could parry even rebellion's supernatural edge, the dark side energy infused in the blades, creating a contest of power where Dante had expected easy victory. One cultist raised his hand, and lightning crackled from his fingertips. Dante rolled aside, the energy scorching the floor where he had stood. "Lightning powers too? You guys are really checking all the boxes on the evil cult bingo card." He returned fire with ebony and ivory, but the cultists deflected the bullets with their blades or simply stopped them in mid-air with outstretched hands. Dante whistled. "That's a neat trick. Let's see how you handle something a little more personal." Sheathing his guns, Dante charged forward with rebellion. He moved with blinding speed, his demonic heritage allowing him to match and exceed the force-enhanced reflexes of his opponents. The massive sword became a blur of silver, cutting through armor and flesh with equal ease. Across the warehouse, Ahsoka dueled the cult leader with graceful precision. Her twin white blades spun in complex patterns, forcing the Sith cultist on the defensive despite his obvious power. "Your cult ends here, Darth Ruin," she called out. "The children you've taken will be freed." The masked figure laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "The children serve a greater purpose, apostate. As will your new friend once we extract what we need from him." Dante dispatched another cultist with a brutal thrust, pausing momentarily at those words. "Extract? Sorry, pal, I'm not really the donation type, unless we're talking about donating my boot to your ass." Darth Ruin disengaged from Ahsoka with a powerful force push that sent her sliding backward. "Your blood, outsider. It sings with power that exists beyond the Force, yet resonates with the dark side nonetheless. A convergence of energies that will serve our purpose perfectly." "My blood? That's new," Dante replied, cleaving through another cultist. "Usually it's my heart, or my soul, or my father's sword everybody's after. Points for originality, I guess." The cult leader raised his hand again, and this time Dante felt a strange pressure, not at his throat, but in his veins. His blood seemed to burn, responding to the dark side pull with a surge of his own demonic power. The sensation was both familiar and alien, painful yet exhilarating. "Yes," Darth Ruin hissed. "You feel it, don't you? The kinship between your power and ours. Different sources, same wellspring of darkness." Dante gritted his teeth, fighting against the invasive presence. Sorry to disappoint you, Mask Face, but I've spent my whole life fighting against my darker nature. You're not the first to try turning me, and you won't be the last to fail." With a roar of effort, Dante broke the dark side hold on his blood, the release sending out a shockwave that staggered the remaining cultists. He flexed his fingers, noticing the faintest red glow emanating from his skin, his demonic power responding to the new environment, adapting, evolving. Ahsoka had recovered and rejoined the fight, her lightsabers a blinding whirl of white energy. "We need to retreat," she called to Dante. "There will be more coming." Darth Ruin seemed to reach the same conclusion about his own forces. "This encounter has proved most informative," he said, backing toward the ruined doorway. "We will meet again, son of Sparda. Your power will serve the Crimson Maw whether you will it or not." The name sent a jolt through Dante. How do you know that title? But the cult leader was already gone, vanishing into the shadows with his remaining followers. Distant sirens wailed, drawing closer to their location. "Imperial forces," Ahsoka explained urgently. "We need to move." Dante hesitated, staring at the spot where Darth Ruin had disappeared. "He knew who I was, who my father was. That's not possible unless they truly did bring you here intentionally," Ahsoka finished for him. "All the more reason we need to find their temple, but not like this, not unprepared." She deactivated her lightsabers, clipping them to her belt. "I have a ship docked in a private bay. We can regroup and plan our next move." Dante nodded slowly, his mind racing. The cultist had known of Sparda, had sensed something in Dante's blood that resonated with their dark side. The implications were troubling. What connection could possibly exist between his world and this one, between demonic power and this force? "Lead the way," he said finally, sheathing rebellion on his back. "But just so we're clear, if anyone else tries to get handsy with my blood, they're losing the hand." Ahsoka's ship proved to be a modified light freighter, nondescript enough to avoid Imperial attention, yet equipped with enhancements that spoke of rebellion connections. As they broke atmosphere, the sprawling expanse of Nar Shaddaa receded beneath them, its neon glow diminishing until it was just another light in the vast darkness of space. Dante stood in the cockpit, gazing out at the star-strewn void with uncharacteristic silence. Starships of various configurations moved through established lanes, a cosmic ballet of commerce and travel, unlike anything his world had known. The scale of this galaxy was humbling, even to one who had traversed the realms of hell itself. "Having second thoughts?" Ahsoka asked, her fingers dancing over the navigation controls as she set their course. Dante turned to her with a half-smile. "Just wondering if there's a frequent interdimensional traveler program I can sign up for. I could use the miles." Ahsoka's lips twitched, but her eyes remained serious. "What Darth Ruin said about your blood troubles me. The dark side practitioners of the Crimson Maw are obsessed with blood rituals, ancient Sith alchemy that was forbidden even among their own kind. And here I thought my family history was complicated," Dante remarked, dropping into the co-pilot's seat. "So where are we heading? Please tell me it's somewhere with decent food. Those ration bars from your emergency kit tasted like compressed cardboard." "Dantooine," Ahsoka replied. "There's an old Jedi enclave there, long abandoned. But the Force still flows strongly through the ruins. If there's a connection between your power and the Force, that's where we'll find answers." The ship's hyperdrive engaged with a deep rumble, stars stretching into streaks of light as they made the jump to hyperspace. Dante watched the blue-white tunnel with fascination. "Hell of a light show," he commented. "Beats my usual mode of transportation." Ahsoka studied him with open curiosity now that they had a moment of relative peace. "You speak of demons and hell as reality, not metaphor. In your world, these things exist as tangibly as the Force does in ours." Dante nodded, absently spinning one of his pistols on his finger. "Demons, angels, the whole theological smorgasbord. My father was Sparda, one of the most powerful demons in existence, until he switched sides and fell in love with a human woman, my mother." His voice softened slightly at the mention, which makes me half demon, half human, and entirely a pain in the ass to anyone trying to bring about the apocalypse. And that's your purpose? Preventing apocalypses? Dante shrugged. That, and running a moderately successful demon hunting business. Emphasis on moderate. I spend most of my time broke, covered in demon guts, and wondering where my next pizza is coming from. He glanced at her. What about you? Former Jedi who walks her own path sounds like there's a story there. A shadow passed over Ahsoka's features. The Jedi Order fell, betrayed from within and without. The Republic became the Empire, and the few Jedi who survived the Purge scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy. Her hands tightened on the controls. I had left the Order before the fall, but that didn't spare me the pain of feeling thousands of lights in the Force extinguished in an instant. Sounds like we've both had our share of losing people, Dante said quietly, his usual flippancy absent for once. Ahsoka nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. She adjusted their course slightly, compensating for a gravitational anomaly in the hyperspace lane. What puzzles me is why the Crimson Maw would reach across dimensions to bring you here. What could they possibly hope to achieve? Well, I am devilishly handsome and great at parties, Dante offered with a smirk, but his eyes remained thoughtful. But if I had to guess, they're after my demon power, specifically the blood of Sparda. In my world, it's been used in rituals to open gates between realms, summon greater demons, all sorts of apocalyptic fun. That aligns with what I know of the cult, Ahsoka confirmed grimly. They've been seeking ways to breach what they call the veil between worlds. Ancient Sith texts speak of realms beyond our own, places of pure dark side energy that exist parallel to our galaxy. Dante sat forward, his interest piqued. Now that sounds familiar. The demon realm in my world exists alongside the human world, separated by a barrier that's been breached more times than I care to count. If the Crimson Maw has found a way to reach across that barrier to pull you through, Ahsoka reasoned, then they may be closer to their goal than anyone realized. They could be attempting to create a permanent gateway between our galaxy and these dark side realms. Which would be bad news for everyone involved, Dante concluded. Demon invasions tend to put a damper on property values. The ship dropped out of hyperspace with a gentle shudder, the blue tunnel of light resolving back into the star-speckled black of normal space. Ahead of them hung Dantooine, a verdant jewel against the darkness. Pretty, Dante commented as they began their approach. Reminds me of Earth, the parts not overrun by demons anyway. Ahsoka guided the ship toward a remote region of the planet, far from the scattered settlements that dotted its surface. The ancient Jedi enclave came into view as they descended through wisps of cloud, its weathered stone structures nestled among rolling hills and flowing streams. The Empire rarely patrols this sector, Ahsoka explained as they touched down in a clearing near the ruins, too far from anything of strategic value. But the Force lingers here, strong and undiluted by the dark side's corruption. As they disembarked, Dante felt it immediately, a tingling awareness unlike anything he had experienced before. It wasn't the oppressive, sulphurous presence of demonic energy, nor the sterile, hollow feeling of angelic power. This was different, a current that flowed through everything, binding the grass beneath his feet to the stones of the ruins to the very air he breathed. So this is the Force, he murmured, turning slowly to take in their surroundings. Feels alive. Ahsoka nodded. The living Force flows through all things, connects all things. The Jedi believed in serving its will, following the path of the light. The Sith seek to bend it to their will, to dominate through the dark side. And which side do you serve? Dante asked, studying her with newfound curiosity. I serve the Force, she answered simply. Not light, not dark, but the balance between them. The Jedi's dogmatic adherence to their code blinded them to the coming darkness. The Sith's hunger for power blinds them to everything else. There must be a middle path. Dante nodded slowly. Balance. Not something I've had much experience with. In my world, demons are pretty much universally on the let's destroy humanity team, with a few exceptions like my old man. They walked together toward the ruins, the ancient stones resonating with centuries of history. Dante's demonic senses prickled as they passed through a crumbling archway, the concentration of force energy intensifying noticeably. "What exactly are we looking for here?" he asked, his voice unconsciously dropping to a whisper in the hallowed space. Ahsoka led him deeper into the enclave, through corridors where roots and vines had reclaimed much of the stonework. "There's an ancient meditation chamber at the heart of the enclave. If there's a connection between your power and the Force, that's where it will be strongest, most clear." The chamber, when they reached it, was a circular room with a domed ceiling open to the sky. At its center lay a pool of crystal-clear water that somehow had not evaporated despite the open air above. The stone floor was inlaid with symbols Dante did not recognize, though their geometric precision reminded him vaguely of certain demonic seals he had encountered. "Fancy place you've got here," he remarked, crouching to examine the pool. His reflection stared back at him, but there was something else there too, a shimmer beneath the surface that seemed to respond to his presence. "This is a vergence in the Force," Ahsoka explained, kneeling beside the pool, "a place where the energy of the Force gathers and concentrates. The Jedi used such places for meditation, to commune more directly with the Force and receive guidance." Dante straightened, rolling his shoulders as he glanced around the chamber. "And you think this special puddle can tell us how I got here and how to get back?" "Not directly," Ahsoka replied with a patient smile, "but it may help us understand the connection between your power and the Force, knowledge we'll need to counter whatever the Crimson Maw is planning." She gestured for Dante to sit opposite her, the pool between them. "I'm going to attempt to enter a deep meditation state. With your permission, I'll try to sense the nature of your power, how it interacts with the Force." Dante hesitated, then shrugged and sat cross-legged as indicated. "Knock yourself out. Just don't go poking around in anything too personal. A man's got to have some secrets." Ahsoka closed her eyes, her breathing slowing as she centered herself in the Force. Dante watched with mild curiosity, wondering what exactly he was supposed to be doing. After a moment's consideration, he closed his eyes as well, more out of a desire to be cooperative than any expectation of results. To his surprise, he felt something immediately. The Force presence he had noticed since landing seemed to intensify, currents of energy swirling around and through him. It was not unlike the sensation of tapping into his devil trigger, that wellspring of power that was his birthright as Sparda's son. Yet this was external rather than internal, a vast ocean of energy in which he was merely one droplet. "Your power," Ahsoka's voice came to him, though her lips did not move. She was speaking directly into his mind through the Force. "It's unlike anything I've felt before. Similar to the Force, yet fundamentally different. As if it's the same energy viewed through a different lens." Dante found he could respond in kind, his thoughts carrying to her without spoken words. "My demon power comes from my father. It's in my blood, my very being. Not something outside me that I tap into, but part of what I am. And yet it resonates with the Force," Ahsoka observed, "particularly with aspects that align with what we would call the dark side: power, passion, freedom from restraint." Dante would have frowned if he were more present in his physical body. "I've spent my life fighting against those who would use that power to harm others. I'm not exactly dark side material." He felt something akin to a smile from Ahsoka. "The dark side is not inherently evil, just as the light is not inherently good. It is how we use power that defines us. Your resistance to your darker nature has shaped your power, tempered it with compassion and purpose." The meditation deepened, and Dante found himself experiencing visions. He saw his own world, the familiar cityscape where his devil-may-cry shop stood. Then a shift, and he was seeing this galaxy, stars swirling in patterns he did not recognize. Between them stretched a barrier, not unlike the one separating the human and demon realms in his world, yet different in quality and composition. The barrier between dimensions, Ahsoka's presence explained, stronger in some places, weaker in others. The Crimson Maw found one such weak point and exploited it. The vision changed again, showing a temple hewn from black stone, deep beneath the neon-lit streets of Nar Shaddaa. At its heart stood an altar of red crystal, pulsing with malevolent energy. Around it, robed figures performed complex rituals, their chanting creating resonance patterns in the force that caused the very air to warp and distort. They used Sith alchemy, Ahsoka continued, combined with technology salvaged from the ancient Starforge, a machine that once drew power directly from the dark side to create ships and weapons for the Sith Empire of old. The vision focused on the altar, where a small vial of red liquid glowed with unnatural light. Blood, Dante realized. They already had my blood somehow, but how? Not yours, Ahsoka corrected, but blood with a similar resonance. They used it as a beacon, a tuning fork to find you across the dimensions and draw you through. The implications hit Dante like a physical blow. They found demon blood in this galaxy? How is that possible? The vision shifted one final time, showing what appeared to be an ancient crash site, a vessel of unknown design, partially buried in the sands of a desert world. Around it, the landscape was warped. Flora and fauna twisted into grotesque parodies of their natural forms by exposure to some corrupting influence. Long ago, Ahsoka explained, something crossed between worlds by accident, a vessel carrying beings not of this galaxy. Their presence, their very essence, was anathema to the Force, creating a wound that never fully healed. The Crimson Maw discovered this site and harvested material to further their research. Dante felt a chill run through him. Demons. Actual demons from my world somehow ended up in yours, long before I did. Perhaps, Ahsoka acknowledged, or perhaps being similar enough that their essence resonates with your own. The galaxy is vast, and the Force works in mysterious ways. The meditation began to lighten, the visions fading as they both returned to greater awareness of their physical surroundings. Dante opened his eyes to find Ahsoka already watching him, her expression grave. "The Crimson Maw brought you here as part of a larger plan," she said, aloud. "They seek to use your blood, combined with artifacts from that ancient crash site, to create a permanent gateway between dimensions. A gateway through which they believe they can access powers beyond the dark side of the Force." Dante rose to his feet, stretching muscles stiff from the prolonged meditation. "They're looking to import demons as a power upgrade. Trust me, that never ends well for anyone involved." He ran a hand through his silver hair, thinking, "We need to find this temple, destroy whatever gateway tech they're building, and preferably punch this Darth ruin guy in his masked face a few times for good measure." "It won't be that simple," Ahsoka cautioned, also standing. "The temple will be heavily guarded, not just by cultists, but by dark side energies themselves. And if they've already begun the ritual to open the gateway, then we crash the party before the guests of honor arrive." Dante finished with a predatory smile. "I'm pretty good at gate crashing. Literally, in most cases." Ahsoka nodded slowly. "We'll need to return to Nar Shaddaa, find the hidden entrance to the temple. The vision showed it was beneath the Corellian sector, as we suspected. One problem," Dante pointed out. "They know we're coming now, and they've had a head start while we've been communing with your fancy puddle here." "The Force works in our favor as well as theirs," Ahsoka replied. "What we learned here will give us an advantage they don't expect." They made their way back through the ruins toward the ship, a new urgency in their steps. As they walked, Dante found himself more attuned to the Force around them, a lingering effect of the meditation perhaps. He could almost see the currents of energy flowing through the ancient stones, connecting all living things in a vast, invisible web. "So if I'm understanding this correctly," he said as they boarded the ship, These Crimson Maw cultists want to use my blood to supercharge their dark side mojo and open a gateway to what they think is some kind of power-boosting demon realm. But they don't actually know what they're dealing with. That seems to be the essence of it, Ahsoka confirmed, initiating the launch sequence. The dark side clouds judgment, fuels arrogance. They believe they can control whatever comes through such a gateway. Dante laughed humorlessly. Classic mistake. Demons aren't big on being controlled, even by other demons, let alone humans with delusions of grandeur. The ship lifted off, rising through Dantooine's atmosphere as Ahsoka plotted their hyperspace jump back to Nar Shaddaa. "There's something else troubling me," she admitted as they cleared the planet's gravity well. The vision showed that the Crimson Maw has been abducting Force-sensitive children. If they're incorporating them into this ritual somehow. Child sacrifices. Dante's expression darkened. Now they're really starting to piss me off. Not sacrifices necessarily, Ahsoka clarified, but the Force manifests differently in children, purer and less restrained by training or dogma. They might be using that quality to help bridge the dimensional gap. The hyperdrive engaged, stars stretching into the now familiar blue tunnel as they began their journey back to the smuggler's moon. Dante sat in contemplative silence, an unusual state for the normally flippant demon hunter. "This Force of yours," he said finally, "it has a will of its own, right? That's what you meant about serving its will rather than just the light or dark." Ahsoka nodded. The Jedi believed the Force guided events toward balance, though individuals might choose to disrupt that balance for a time. "Then maybe there's a reason I ended up here, beyond just these cultists' scheme," Dante mused. "In my world, I've stopped demon invasions, prevented apocalypses, generally been a thorn in the side of anyone trying to unleash hell on Earth. Maybe your Force decided it needed someone with experience in that department." Ahsoka studied him with new interest. "You may be right. The Force often works through what might appear as coincidence or chance to those not sensitive to its currents." Dante flashed his trademark cocky grin. "Well, if the universe wanted a demon hunter, it certainly got the best in the business. Let's just hope my usual methods work on your dark side cultists." The journey back to Nar Shaddaa passed quickly, both of them using the time to prepare for what lay ahead. Ahsoka maintained her connection to the Force, seeking guidance and insight. Dante checked his weapons, though he had begun to notice that both Rebellion and his twin pistols were responding differently in this galaxy, as if the Force itself was interacting with their demonic nature. As they approached the smuggler's moon once more, Ahsoka brought the ship in through a different vector than their departure, aiming for a less monitored docking bay on the fringes of the Corellian sector. "We'll need to move, quickly and quietly," she advised, as they prepared to disembark. "The Crimson Maw will have informants watching for our return." Dante holstered his pistols and adjusted Rebellion on his back. "Quick and quiet aren't usually in my repertoire, but I'll do my best. No promises once we find these cultists, though." The docking bay was a dingy, poorly lit affair, populated by the sort of beings who made their living in the shadows of galactic society. Smugglers, thieves, bounty hunters, all giving the newcomers a wide berth after taking in Dante's confident swagger and the twin lightsabers hanging from Ahsoka's belt. They made their way through twisting alleys and crowded thoroughfares, Ahsoka leading them on a circuitous route to avoid potential watchers. The deeper they went into the Corellian sector, the more dilapidated their surroundings became. Centuries of urban development piled haphazardly atop older structures, creating a vertical labyrinth of durasteel and permacrete. "The temple entrance should be somewhere beneath us," Ahsoka said quietly as they paused in a narrow alley between towering residential blocks. The vision showed a maintenance shaft that had been repurposed. Dante closed his eyes, extending his senses in a way he had never attempted before. His demonic heritage had always granted him heightened perception, an innate ability to sense supernatural threats. But now, having experienced the Force through meditation, he found he could reach further, feel deeper. "There," he said suddenly, pointing to a nondescript access panel set into the alley wall. I can feel something below, dark, pulsing, like a heartbeat, but wrong somehow. Ahsoka reached out with her own senses and nodded grimly. The dark side flows strongly there. You have good instincts. Part of the job description, Dante replied with a wink. He approached the panel, examining it for traps or alarms. So, knock politely or kick the door down. Neither, Ahsoka said, placing her hand on the panel. She closed her eyes in concentration, and after a moment, the panel slid open with a soft hiss. The Force can be persuasive, even to mechanical systems, if you understand their nature. Handy trick, Dante acknowledged. Remind me to have you open my shop when I inevitably lose my keys again. Beyond the panel lay a maintenance shaft, a ladder descending into darkness that seemed to swallow the dim light from above. They exchanged a look, then Dante gestured gallantly. Ladies first? Or would you prefer I go down and spring any nasty surprises waiting for us? Ahsoka stepped onto the ladder without hesitation. We go together. Watch for security measures beyond the physical. The dark side can manifest in many ways. They descended into the depths of Nar Shaddaa, the sounds of the city fading above them as they climbed down level after level. The air grew thick and stale, carrying the metallic tang of ancient machinery and something else, something organic and wrong. As they neared the bottom of the shaft, Dante felt it, a pressure in his mind, insidious whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Voices promising power, vengeance, freedom from all constraints. The dark side, reaching for him, recognizing the potential in his demonic blood. Ignore the whispers, Ahsoka advised, her voice steady despite the strain evident in her features. They prey on desires, fears, ambitions. Give them no purchase in your mind. Dante grinned tightly. Trust me, I've had far scarier things than whispers trying to get in my head. My mental real estate is strictly off the market. They reached the bottom of the shaft, stepping into a tunnel that curved away into darkness. Unlike the utilitarian maintenance passages above, this corridor showed signs of deliberate construction, the walls carved with symbols that seemed to writhe and shift when viewed directly. Sith runes, Ahsoka explained in a whisper, designed to disorient and corrupt. Focus on me, not the walls. They moved forward cautiously, Ahsoka leading with her Force senses alert, Dante following with pistols drawn. The tunnel began to slope downward, the air growing colder with each step. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, they reached a vast chamber carved from the living rock beneath Nar Shaddaa. Hiding in the shadows of the entrance, they surveyed the scene before them. The chamber was dominated by a massive altar of red crystal, just as the vision had shown. Around it, dozens of cultists moved in synchronized patterns, their chanting creating discordant harmonies that set Dante's teeth on edge. Above the altar, the air itself seemed to warp and distort, reality thinning at the boundaries. But what drew their attention most immediately were the children. 9 young ones of various species, suspended in containment fields around the perimeter of the chamber, their small bodies rigid with pain or terror. The fields pulsed with dark energy, drawing something from the children, channeling it toward the altar. There, Ahsoka whispered, pointing to a figure overseeing the ritual from a raised dais. Darth Ruin. The cult leader stood with arms outstretched, his obsidian mask reflecting the eerie light of the crystal altar. Beside him, a cylindrical container glowed with a familiar blue energy, within it a pulsing red heart that Dante recognized all too well. A devil heart, he murmured in disbelief. From the crash site you showed me in the vision, they're using it as a beacon, a connection to the demon realm. His eyes narrowed as he took in the rest of the chamber. And they're using the kids as amplifiers, their Force sensitivity creating a bridge between dimensions. Ahsoka's expression was grim. We need to free the children and stop the ritual before the gateway stabilizes. Once it's fully formed, anything could come through. Dante checked his weapons one last time. You free the kids, I'll deal with. mask face and his crystal toy. "And the cultists?" Ahsoka asked. Dante's smile turned predatory. "Leave them to me. I'm in the mood for a workout." They separated, Ahsoka melting into the shadows to circle around to the containment fields, while Dante stepped boldly into the light of the chamber. For a moment, none of the cultists noticed him, so absorbed were they in their chanting. Then, as if sensing an intrusion in their dark communion, heads began to turn. "Hope I'm not interrupting," Dante called out, his voice echoing through the vast space. "Actually, that's a lie. Interrupting is exactly what I came here to do." The chanting faltered, then ceased entirely as Darth Ruin raised a hand. The cult leader turned slowly to face the intruder, his mask revealing nothing of the emotion behind it. "The son of Sparda returns to us," he intoned. "As was foreseen, your blood will be the final key to opening the way." "You know, you're not the first creepy cult leader to tell me that," Dante replied casually, strolling forward as if he hadn't a care in the world. "They all had one thing in common too." "And what was that?" Darth Ruin asked, a hint of genuine curiosity in his modulated voice. Dante drew rebellion in a fluid motion, the sword gleaming hungrily in the red light of the altar. They all died screaming. He charged forward with supernatural speed, covering the distance to the altar in the blink of an eye. The cultists responded immediately, drawing vibroswords and activating crimson lightsabers as they moved to intercept him. But Dante was ready for them this time, having felt their connection to the Force, having measured their capabilities. Rebellion sang through the air, parrying lightsabers and cleaving through armor with equal ease. Dante moved like quicksilver, a red and silver blur among the crimson-robed figures. When blades came too close, he would simply vanish, reappearing elsewhere in the chamber to continue his assault. On the far side of the room, Ahsoka had reached the first of the containment fields. Her lightsabers made short work of the control panel, and the field collapsed, releasing a young Twi'lek girl who fell limply into her waiting arms. Ahsoka moved the child to safety behind a stone column, then proceeded to the next field. Darth Ruin observed the chaos with apparent calm, making no move to join the battle directly. Instead, he turned back to the altar, placing his hands on the crystal surface and channeling dark side energy into it. The distortion above intensified, the fabric of reality stretching thinner. "The gateway opens," he called out, his voice cutting through the sounds of combat. "Soon our ascension will be complete." Dante dispatched another 3 cultists with a spinning attack, then turned his attention to the altar. "Sorry to disappoint you," he shouted back, "but the only thing coming through that gateway is a whole lot of trouble, and trust me, you don't want what's waiting on the other side." He holstered Rebellion and drew Ebony and Ivory, firing a barrage of shots at the crystal altar. The bullets struck with unerring accuracy, but merely glanced off the surface, deflected by some invisible barrier. "Your weapons cannot harm the Nexus crystal," Darth Ruin taunted. "It was forged in the heart of a dying star, tempered with the blood of 1,000 sacrifices. Good thing I've got more than just guns then," Dante replied with a dangerous smile. The air around him began to shimmer, his body glowing with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Let's see how your fancy rock handles a little devil power." With a roar that shook the very foundations of the chamber, Dante triggered his devil form. His body transformed, skin hardening into red scales, wings erupting from his back, his entire being suffused with demonic energy. The Force itself seemed to recoil around him, light and dark alike, disturbed by the introduction of this foreign power. The cultists fell back in fear and awe, their disciplined ranks breaking at the sight of the transformed demon hunter. Even Darth Ruin took an involuntary step backward, his mask tilting as if in disbelief. "What are you?" he demanded, his composure cracking for the first time. Dante's voice resonated with otherworldly power as he answered, "I'm what's been keeping the demons at bay in my world, the thing that stands between humanity and extinction. And right now, I'm your worst nightmare." He launched himself toward the altar, his transformed body moving faster than even force-enhanced reflexes could track. Darth Ruin barely managed to ignite his lightsaber in time to meet Dante's attack, the red blade clashing against claws wreathed in demonic energy. "You feel it, don't you?" Dante pressed, forcing the Sith cultist backward with each blow. "This isn't your dark side. This is something else entirely. Something you have no control over, something you could never hope to understand." Ahsoka had freed 6 of the 9 children now, creating a small cluster of frightened younglings hidden behind the stone columns at the chamber's edge. As she worked to disable the 7th containment field, a group of cultists noticed her efforts and moved to intercept. "Dante," she called out. "They're protecting the fields. The children are key to the ritual." The devil-triggered hunter turned his head, assessing the new threat in an instant. With a powerful beat of his wings, he launched himself away from Darth Ruin, landing between Ahsoka and the approaching cultists. "Keep freeing the kids," he instructed. "I'll hold them off." The cultists hesitated at the sight of his transformed state, but their fanaticism overrode their fear. They attacked as one, lightsabers and vibro swords creating a web of lethal energy. Dante met them with demonic fury, his claws shearing through weapons and limbs with equal ease. He fought with controlled savagery, keeping himself between the cultists and Ahsoka's position without giving ground. Darth Ruin, seeing his followers falling before this otherworldly opponent, abandoned all pretense of calm. He raised both hands toward the ceiling and began an incantation in an ancient Sith tongue, words that seemed to cut the very air as he spoke them. The gateway distortion responded, expanding rapidly, the boundaries between dimensions stretching to breaking point. "You're too late, son of Sparda," he called out triumphantly. "The way is opening. Your presence here has only accelerated the process, your power feeding the connection whether you will it or not." Dante glanced up at the expanding rift with growing concern. Through it, he could sense something familiar, a presence he had encountered before. Not just any demon realm lay beyond that gateway, but one he knew all too well. "Mundus," he growled, the name like venom on his lips. "You're opening a door right into his territory." Ahsoka freed the 8th child and moved swiftly to the final containment field. With the children's connection to the ritual broken, the gateway's expansion slowed, but did not stop entirely. Whatever process the Crimson Maw had initiated had gained its own momentum, feeding now on the dark side energies saturating the temple and the lingering resonance of Dante's devil trigger. The final containment field fell, and Ahsoka gathered the last child, a small Togruta boy no more than 5 years old, into her arms. She retreated to where the other children huddled, creating a defensive position with her lightsabers ready. "The children are free," she called to Dante. "But the gateway is still forming." Dante dispatched the last of the cultists between him and Darth Ruin, then turned his full attention to the Sith leader. "Time to end this," he declared, his wings spreading wide as he launched himself at his opponent. Darth Ruin abandoned his incantation and met Dante's charge with his lightsaber, the two clashing in a storm of energy that sent shockwaves through the chamber. The cult leader fought with all the fury and technique of a trained Sith, his blade moving faster than the human eye could follow. But Dante's devil trigger form matched him blow for blow, demonic reflexes and strength compensating for any lack of formal lightsaber training. "You cannot stop what has been set in motion," Darth Ruin hissed as they locked blades, his mask inches from Dante's transformed face. "The dark side has shown me visions of what lies beyond. Power beyond imagining awaits those worthy to claim it." Dante's laugh was a harsh, inhuman sound. "What waits on the other side is a demon lord who'd crush you like an insect. Mundus doesn't share power, he only collects slaves. Trust me, I've dealt with him before." With a surge of strength, Dante broke the blade lock and delivered a powerful kick to Darth Ruin's chest, sending the cult leader flying backward to crash against the crystal altar. The impact cracked the obsidian mask, revealing a glimpse of corrupted flesh beneath, skin marred by dark side corruption. Above them, the gateway continued to widen, the air splitting along invisible seams as reality itself protested the violation. Through the widening tear, a landscape began to take shape, a realm of twisted architecture and blood-red skies that Dante recognized all too well. "The demon world," he murmured, his devil trigger fading as he conserved his energy for what might come next. "He's actually done it." Darth Ruin struggled to his feet, his broken mask falling away completely, to reveal a face ravaged by dark side energies, veins of black corruption spreading across once human features. "Behold," he rasped, "the source of true power, beyond the Force itself." Ahsoka joined Dante, her lightsabers humming at the ready as she surveyed the expanding gateway. "Can anything come through?" she asked urgently. "Not yet," Dante replied, studying the rift with experienced eyes. "It's still forming, still, unstable. But soon, yes. And trust me, you don't want that to happen." "How do we stop it?" Dante's eyes fell on the cylindrical container beside the altar, the devil heart within still pulsing with unnatural vitality. "That's the anchor on this side, the thing connecting your world to mine. Destroy it, and the gateway should collapse." Ahsoka nodded and moved toward the container, but Darth Ruin was faster. With a gesture of his hand, he sent her flying backward with a powerful force push, then erected a barrier of dark side energy around the heart. "You will not deny us our destiny," he snarled, drawing on the force to heal his injuries, the black corruption spreading further across his face as he did so. "The power of your world will be ours to command." Dante helped Ahsoka to her feet, his eyes never leaving the cult leader. "He's losing it," he muttered. "The dark side corruption is eating him alive, and he doesn't even realize it. Can we break through his barrier?" Ahsoka asked, regaining her stance. Dante considered their options, watching as the gateway continued to widen above the altar. "I might be able to, with another devil trigger, but it would feed more power into the gateway in the process, possibly accelerating it." A new voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant, filling the space despite its measured volume. "Son of Spada." Dante froze, his blood running cold despite the heat of battle. Slowly, he raised his eyes to the gateway, where a massive silhouette had appeared within the rift. 3 glowing red eyes stared down at him, burning with ancient malice. "Mundus," Dante acknowledged, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Been a while. Still ugly as ever, I see." The Demon Emperor's laughter shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling as reality itself trembled at his proximity. "Ever defiant, even now. How fitting that your blood should be the key to my return to the human world." "Hate to disappoint you," Dante replied, subtly shifting his position to place himself between the gateway and Ahsoka. "But this isn't my world, and you're not coming through. Not today, not ever." Darth Ruin fell to his knees before the gateway, his arms outstretched in supplication. "Great One," he intoned, "we have prepared the way as prophesied. Grant us the power you promised, that we might rule this galaxy in your name." Mundus's attention shifted to the kneeling Sith, his 3 eyes narrowing in contempt. "You are nothing," he declared, "a vessel, nothing more. Your purpose is fulfilled." Dark energy surged from the gateway, engulfing Darth Ruin before he could react. The cult leader screamed as his body began to transform, flesh warping and twisting as demonic essence poured into him, using him as a conduit, a bridge between worlds. "He's using Ruin as a physical anchor," Dante explained grimly to Ahsoka, "possessing him to gain a foothold in this reality." Ahsoka's face was set with determination. "Then we destroy the anchor, both of them." They charged together, moving in perfect synchronicity despite having fought alongside each other for less than a day. Ahsoka's lightsabers flashed toward the barrier, protecting the Devil Heart, while Dante engaged the transforming Darth Ruin directly. The cult leader was barely recognizable now, his form bloated and twisted by demonic possession, limbs elongating into blade-like appendages, skin hardening into a carapace reminiscent of Mundus's stone form. He fought with the fury of the possessed, all technique abandoned in favor of raw power. Dante matched that power with his own, foregoing another devil trigger in favor of pure skill and experience. Rebellion sliced through the air, finding gaps in the demonic armor, driving the possessed Sith backward step by step. Meanwhile, Ahsoka had engaged in a different kind of battle. Rather than attacking the barrier directly, she had closed her eyes, lightsabers deactivated at her sides. She reached out to the Force, not fighting the dark side energy of the barrier, but seeking harmony with it, understanding it from within. The barrier responds to intent, she called to Dante. It keeps out those who would destroy what it protects. But if I approach with different purpose. Her lightsabers ignited once more, but rather than striking, she began to move them in intricate patterns, tracing symbols in the air that mimicked those carved on the chamber walls. The barrier rippled in response, recognizing the Sith forms, accepting her apparent allegiance. "Clever girl," Dante grunted, parrying another savage blow from the possessed ruin. "Hurry though, our friend here is getting cranky." Indeed, the transformation was accelerating, Mundus's influence growing stronger as more of his essence poured through the widening rift. Above them, the gateway had expanded to fill nearly half the chamber's ceiling, the demon world clearly visible beyond, red skies and twisted spires extending to a horizon of perpetual twilight. With a final complex gesture, Ahsoka stepped through the barrier as it recognized her as ally rather than foe. She stood before the cylindrical container, the devil heart pulsing faster as if sensing its impending destruction. "Dante," she called out, "when I destroy this, what happens to your connection to your world?" "Your way home." Dante ducked under a scything limb and delivered a punishing counterstrike that sent the possessed ruin staggering. "Worry about that later, just do it." Ahsoka nodded once, then plunged both lightsabers into the container. The reinforced glass shattered, the preservative fluid boiling away instantly as the white energy blades pierced the devil heart itself. The organ gave one final violent pulse, then exploded in a shower of corrupted tissue and dark energy. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The gateway above began to collapse, reality rushing back to fill the void as the connection between dimensions severed. Mundus's roar of fury echoed through the chamber as his presence was forced back, the rift closing before he could complete his crossing. The possessed Darth ruin screamed in agony as his master's influence was torn away, the demonic transformations reversing themselves in a grotesque display. Flesh sloughed away, bone splintered and reformed, until all that remained was a withered husk of the once powerful Sith, empty eyes staring at nothing as he collapsed to the chamber floor. Dante stood over the fallen cult leader, rebellion ready to deliver a final blow if necessary, but there was no need. Darth ruin was gone, consumed by the very power he had sought to control. The chamber began to shake violently as the energies released by the collapsing gateway destabilized the entire temple structure. Stone cracked, support pillars buckled, and the ceiling began to cave in. "Time to go," Dante announced, sheathing his sword and turning to where Ahsoka was gathering the frightened children. "Need a hand with the little ones." Together they herded the 9 children toward the exit tunnel, Dante taking the smallest in his arms while Ahsoka guided the others. They raced through the collapsing temple, the sounds of destruction growing louder behind them as centuries of dark side energy released itself in one cataclysmic chain reaction. They reached the maintenance shaft just as the tunnel behind them gave way entirely, dust and debris billowing outward in a choking cloud. The climb up was arduous with children in tow, but between Dante's strength and Ahsoka's force abilities, they managed to lift the younglings level by level, staying just ahead of the destruction below. When they finally emerged into the alley above, the ground was shaking beneath their feet, the collapse having triggered seismic disturbances that radiated outward through Nar Shaddaa's lower levels. Ahsoka led them through the panicked crowds, away from the Corellian sector and toward the relative safety of the Dunja spaceport. Hours later, with the children safely aboard Ahsoka's ship and the chaos of Nar Shaddaa receding behind them, Dante stood at the viewport watching the stars of hyperspace streak by. He felt the presence of Ahsoka join him, her reflection appearing beside his in the transparisteel. "The children will recover," she informed him. "I've contacted allies who can help find their families or provide safe haven for those who have none to return to." Dante nodded absently, his thoughts elsewhere. "So, about my ticket home. I'm guessing that got blown up along with the Devil Heart and the Gateway." Ahsoka's expression was sympathetic but not without hope. "The crude method the Crimson Maw was using, yes. But the Force works in mysterious ways. You were brought here for a purpose. Perhaps that purpose is not yet fulfilled." Dante turned to face her, his usual flippant demeanor subdued by the events of the past days. "You know, in my line of work, I've learned to roll with the punches. One dimension or another, there are always battles worth fighting, people worth protecting." He glanced back at the stars streaking by. "This galaxy of yours seems like it could use someone with my particular skill set. The rebellion against the Empire could certainly benefit from your abilities." Ahsoka agreed. "Though your methods might require some adjustment for our type of warfare." Dante laughed, some of his old humor returning. "What? You don't think the rebels are ready for the full Dante experience? Demons, pizza, and questionable one-liners included?" Ahsoka's lips curved in a smile. "I think the galaxy isn't ready. But that hasn't stopped either of us before." As their ship continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying them and their rescued charges toward an uncertain future, Dante couldn't help but feel that despite being further from home than ever before, he had found a new purpose in this strange galaxy far, far away. Demons or dark side, the battle between light and shadow continued, and he would face it as he always had, with sword in hand and a smile on his face. Meanwhile, deep beneath the ruins of the Crimson Maw temple on Nar Shaddaa, something stirred in the darkness. A single drop of blood, splashed during the battle, seeped into the ancient stone, carrying with it the essence of the son of Sparda. As it disappeared into the rock, a faint pulse of energy responded, echoing outward through the Force like ripples in a still pond. The saga of Dante in the galaxy far, far away had only just begun,